Welcome. Today we are trying to get a grasp on this thing we call the progressive era. Um, what is it? What is it all about? What are the inherent issues involved? Um, we know on some level it's a reform period, right? It's a period where people are looking at these issues of the Gilded Age, the urban slums, labor issues, environmental concerns, this urban degradation, and they're trying to find solutions to it. Um, they were interested in progress, hence the term progressives, but not progress at any cost. Um, the issue we have, the reason why we have a little trouble understanding them, is that it was so many different movements wrapped up in one. It was political reform, it was urban reform, it was conservation movement, it was safety concerns, it's rights for the worker, it's pay for the workers. It comes at so many different angles. On top of that, you had two real different groups that were wrapped up in this, especially the environmental or urban movements. On one side, you had these groups, we tend to call them the engineers. These are like your urban planners, and these are your guys who are going to develop sewer systems and new techniques of waste disposal, etc. On the other hand, you have your kind of middle class people, this rising middle class, and these guys are trying to figure out how to make life better for them and better for the world. So you've got your engineer on one side and your kind of middle class reformist on the other side, and at first you think they just kind of work together. Instead, well, they don't. They just can't seem to get it together, which is part of the problem of this age. And so we're going to look at one of these confrontations between these two groups to try and understand why these two guys can't just get along. Um, so to do it, we're going to look at the conservation movement. Um, and we're going to look at the difference between what we call a preservationist and a scientific conservationist. Um, Now, everybody was upset by what had happened to the natural landscape, specifically of the West, through logging, through mining. They were scared at what was going to happen next. Were they going to lose these amazing places that seemed to make the United States such a surreal environment? Um, Now, this isn't a new movement. I don't want you to think it came out of nowhere. Yellowstone was actually made into a national park back in 1872. Ulysses S. Grant, as president, put it in, to be honest. Um, but let's look at those two groups. The first was our preservationist. His name is John Muir. He's kicking around in the 1890s. He was Scottish born, grew up in Wisconsin, and then, believe it or not, walked from Wisconsin down to the Gulf of Mexico. And he ended up landing out in the Sierra Nevadas out in California. He became obsessed with them. He loved them and the great sequoias. Um, there's actually a trail named after him out there now. The point is, um, he started writing about it. He started writing books, especially My Summer in the Sierras was the kind of first major one. It's a great book if you ever get it. Um, but the middle class people and the upper class people back east, became obsessed with it. If you went into a house and they didn't have a copy of one of John Muir's books on their coffee table, they were not in vogue. Um, and what he did is he founded a group called the Sierra Club in 1892. I'm sure you've heard of them. If you hadn't, you've at least heard of the Appalachian Mountain Club around here in Connecticut. Um, it called for the preservation of natural places before industry. This idea that before mining and logging could ravage them, somebody had to preserve them so nobody could take away their beauty, their healing power. All right. On the other side of the story is a guy named Gifford Pinchot. Now, Gifford Pinchot was Teddy Roosevelt's head of the U.S. Forest Service. He was a scientific engineer. In fact, he was the first forestry engineer. Um, he He actually went to Yale, who had the first forestry program. He got the first degree in forestry from Yale. And he believed that you could manage environments and that you could do it through responsible development. You could still have logging and mining and grazing and everything on the land, but you had to be responsible about how you did it. You had to do it so that you don't sap everything from the land too quickly. And Teddy Roosevelt actually flopped between these two ideas. I mean, he's the great outdoorsman, right? He's the great hunter. He's named after the teddy bear because he refused to kill a bear that was sickly, right? That's why they call it that. Um, and he was preserving everything, as you know, as you learned from your textbook. He just kind of preserved land left and right and left as like nature preserves or natural wildlife refuge. He just made it up. He preserved it. It wasn't the president's power, but he made it the president's power. All right. But that's what you have. John Muir, the preservationist, supported by the voluntary middle class kind of excitement, right? On the other side, Gifford Pinchot, the scientific conservationist, the engineer, the professional, trying to responsibly use nature. And so that's the idea. Do you preserve it completely? Or do you still utilize it and just be responsible about it? This became the debate. It's still the debate. Do you ever hear people talking about what is the innate value of land? What is the innate value of nature? Is it profit-based? Or is it the ability of nature to be emotionally healing? This is what they go back and forth with. And this was the real problem of the progressive era. Two sides wanting the same thing, unable to agree on how to do it. Just my 2 cents. You play around with it. We'll see you.